So AI is revolutionizing the architecture sector, and I'm excited as well today to delve deeper into this topic. I am Christophe Le Lannou, a board member of the Franco-British Data Society, and our speaker for today will be introduced by Pierre Saunal, who is architect and co-founder of Airc.digital. But maybe before giving him as well the before letting him speech, I'm going maybe to introduce the Franco-British Data Society in a few words and to give you some background as well. Yes. So the Franco-British Data Society is a company limited by guarantee, and we intend as well to become a charitable, to have a charitable status shortly as well, on the networking platform. So we welcome a broad mix of entrepreneur, expert, and practitioner in data to discuss from a Franco-British and European perspective, policy, governance, digital transformations, artificial intelligence, data science, education, data security, ethics, and regulations. And so today we are welcoming as well so Pierre to introduce our speaker, Nathalie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for being with us. So I'm Pierre Saunal. I'm part of Airc.digital. We are BIM consultants heavily involved in the digitalization of the built environment. And we're very excited to co-organize this series of short webinars with the Franco-British Data Society. And although today to welcome Nathalie, who kindly accepted to be our first guest speaker. So Nathalie is the founder of Name Architecture based in Paris and London. It's an award-winning practice working really everywhere in the world on a series of subjects. But what's very interesting about Nathalie and Name Architecture is it goes beyond the design. Because on top of designing buildings at every scale, Nathalie co-launched a series of podcasts called Designing Futures, which explore the impact of AI on the design community. So how AI will transform the way we perceive designs and designing. So I invite everyone to have a look or listen to the podcast. And I will let now Nathalie start. So thank you very much, Nathalie. We're really grateful and happy to have you with us this morning, this afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks, Pierre and Christophe, for the introduction. I'm very happy to be with you and be doing this. Let me just share my screen. So I hope, can everyone see this? Yes, good. So thanks for having me. I'm a director and founder of Name Architecture. We are a practice that, as you said, are based between London and Paris and work in a variety of places and scales, with a very talented team of multicultural and multi-talented architects. As part of that, actually, we always like to say that design is one of the core values that defines our identity. And with that comes a lot of questions on what design also means in terms of its conceptual development and how research integrates into that. And therefore, this idea of questioning and researching in the world of design and what affects us is really the core of our studio. So as you kindly introduced, we have really taken a great interest over the past 2 years into how AI will affect our work, our profession, and the creative industries in general. And this is what I'm here to share with you today. Both in terms of the general questions of this ask, but also and show you a little bit of how we use it in our studio and what tools we've put in place and changes that we are foreseeing already. So I think one important thing before I start is that to really, we talk a lot about AI, but there's also quite an interesting and important distinction to be made between artificial intelligence per se, which has been around for quite a while and primarily involves analyzing data and forecasting the future accordingly, and generative AI, which is tools that really empower computers to create an entirely new content that very closely resembles the one that would be human generated. And when we talk about AI in the creative industries today, a big chunk of this is actually generative AI, which we will be covering. So this all stems from a question that we started asking ourselves a couple of years ago, on why we think that architects should care about AI. Of course, at the beginning, as everyone, we were concerned, what would that mean? Would it take our jobs away? But very quickly going beyond that, we think that AI in general will really have a transformative impact on the architectural design process, on how we learn, how we design, how we educate, how we work with these tools in terms of developing a building from the concept to its realization. It has a lot of implications in terms of sustainability of the building and its environment, and also the potential to really enhance creativity and the innovation in the industry. So I would say that for us, AI is really a paradigm shift, and I think that's what we're really seeing across many industries. But it's a paradigm shift that is actually driving innovation and shaping the future of our profession and the creative industry in general. It will shape the future of the way we practice architecture. It will shape the future of the client relationship we have, and also the education of architects, and that's a big topic that is to also be addressed when we talk about AI for me. So how do we do this at NAME? We are a relatively mid-sized studio, so we don't necessarily have big research tools and facilities in-house, but what we set up is that we hold what we call NAME Talks, which are regular sessions in the studio, in which we explore these tools, we question ideas, and we share these amongst ourselves. We have assigned one person who drives this AI research in the studio, but that person then shares new tools to test in the studio. We have monthly meetings to assess these. We very often set up challenges to test the limits of these tools. Let's say, for example, we set up ourselves a challenge just before Christmas to say, let's do respond to an architectural competition using only AI tools and softwares, and how far can we push this? And we also participate quite a lot in training and AI workshops. And as Pierre, you said, as you introduced, in the background, all this and driving this is also this podcast that I launched with my sister, Nathalie Rozencwajg, called Designing Futures, AI, Data, Architecture and Beyond, where we question the implications of AI on the industry at large. And I'll come to this again towards the end of my presentation. So why we think architects should care about AI, as I said, is not that we think that AI will replace architects, but rather we're really seeing this being a relationship in how we communicate with the machines. So it's not so much either the architect or the artificial intelligence, but how the interaction with the two happens, evolves, and how that will change the way that we practice and design. And that, I think, is very important to note, that it's this relationship that we're seeing changing. Of course, this happens on a variety of different levels in the architectural process, and I'll show you examples of these. But if we list them, it definitely happens for us at the stage of conceptualization, where it sparks creativity, and we can quickly test diverse design options. It's also a tool that we use at planning and analysis stage. So AI is very helpful in data-driven decision-making, optimizing designs and accelerating project timelines, for example. As visualization is, of course, one of the very important aspects of it. And I think that's the one that most of the general public comes across when they talk about AI for the moment in the creative industries. But for us, we see it really enhancing presentation, boosting client engagement, because we can really present designs to the client in a very realistic, quick, and engaging media. It has and will have a greater impact on integrating sustainable design at very early stages of conception, by evaluating environmental impacts very early on, and easily. When I say easily, meaning that as architects and designers, we can do that in-house ourselves with the tools that are available. It can help us very quickly look at optimizing building performances, for example, at very early stages of design, and having that drive the design decisions. and client engagement in how we communicate our designs. So at NAME, how do we use AI so far? We really see it as a companion from design analysis to the client presentation, which has significantly reduced our time and cost, while to a great extent also enhancing the creativity. We use it at the stage of conceptualization, where it helps us craft unique references when we're trying to test ideas, to look at a particular site, to get inspired by, for example, a particular material, a setting, a particular way that light and shadow work. So we can quickly test these elements through quick visualization that create this dialogue that we have at early stages to conceptualize ideas. We also now use it very much with custom trained AI models, and that's a shift that we will see happening more and more in the future, whereas we train the AI to work with our database of images and projects that we've already designed, so that it actually can generate images and text that are based on name signature design, I would say. So what you see here on the right is the input of actual project that we have designed in the past. And when we feed and train the AI accordingly, by then prompting it to, for example, design a residential building in Riyadh, it comes up with an early test of something that has something about our architectural signature in it. And these are very early stages yet, but that is what we're going towards. We, of course, use it at the level of planning and analysis, at site planning stages, where we really look at these tools to help us develop quick massing options and calculate surfaces and areas. Also, in helping us to lay out internal distribution of spaces and coming up with many options quickly to evaluate. And of course, as I said, visualization as a tool is where it's being widely used by the industry in general, and ourselves as well, where we use it to generate quick visualizations to test idea, and these are now linked to the actual 3D model, for example, that we're building up. A simple 3D model can then be embedded to generate quick visualizations and test materiality, lighting, etc. We use it in video and animations, and I'll show you an example shortly, and in post-production. So, and that is really something that enhances very much our engagement and our relationship with the client. For example, if you see the bottom, the image on the bottom right here, and when we introduce that into a tool, I hope the video shows properly. Sorry for, yeah, you see this is an animated render that is produced with AI, where we can shift the time of the day, put some movement into the trees and movement of people, and really animate what was initially either a render or a photograph to create an engaging presentation. And these are tools that are widely available and very quickly easy to use by anyone. So that is really where we started using these and creating this shift. As I mentioned before, the enhancement of these tools in terms of us thinking about a design sustainably is very important as well. This is actually an example here of a building that we designed together with Pierre and his team at Airc.digital, when we analyzed quite a complex form in terms of many of its aspects. But here you can see how we use these tools quickly to look at daylight and heating simulations in terms of best orientation and shaping of the mass itself. Also analyzing wind quite quickly in-house. And all this really adds to our ability to consider these aspects at an very early stage of design and formal massing. And as I said, this all ends up in an enhanced client engagement where we have a better grasp of the design by the client, an engaging presentation in terms of the tools, the ability to have conclusive reasoning as well, because the analysis and simulations that we can easily produce with these tools help us argument for particular decisions, and time delivery, of course, is affected by that. I would quickly go through, I think where this is heading towards the future, and where we're seeing our studio and other studios taking these tools in their workflow. We're seeing much more personalized chatbots being developed, where this is very useful at many levels of a studio's workflow. For example, it simplifies the research on regulation and guidelines, and looking for information in past projects, where we're actually training the AI to learn and provide feedback from a lot of material that has already been produced by the studio itself. So that really enhances the workflow, but also supporting training. So for example, like BIM training, improving skills that employees have and knowledge retention, which is really developed at a level of a studio, and the knowledge that the studio has accumulated over the time. And also a number of company-specific tools that we've seen being developed recently, surrogate models which allow for real-time analysis during design phases, diffusion models, as I showed previously, that really learn from the studio's signature to create, generate new design. We've seen also more human-centric design tools being developed, where they're trying to explore the connection between our emotions and 3D designs, what particular shapes and forms produce as emotions, and that could be quantified as part of a design, and image generation tools. So this is to give you an idea, I think, where this is heading, and what we will see in developments in the next few months and years to come. One of the important questions that we asked ourselves when we approach this, because everyone looks at this the AI as this paradigm shift, was whether there has in the past been similar transformation in the architectural profession or creative professions in general that have had such an impact of the profession and changing the way we work. And it's really one of the questions that we keep on asking ourselves is, could we compare this to the invention of the printing press, for example, that bringing on such a strong paradigm shift, the invention of descriptive geometry, or the Industrial Revolution in terms of how it changed our relationship to materials and building and construction modes, the invention of the computer technologies in general as well. And I think that those are interesting topics that some of our podcasts actually cover as well, to think of that. Can we learn something from these past transformations in terms of how we approach this paradigm shift? I've shown you a lot of the positives and very optimistic ways that we see this developing, but of course there are dangers and flags, things that we need to flag out as well. And I think it's important that we are all aware of these, so that we are actually become key players in the development of these tools and the way we use them, and not just being on the receiving end of them. So some of these questions and dangers that we see is the question of generating too many options. What do you do when you can easily generate 20, 50 images? What value does this have, and how do you make decisions? There are, of course, privacy and security concerns and ethical implications, which have a lot to do with copyrights. And you've obviously followed the developments around this, about who owns the images, what is the AI being trained on. There's a certain risk of homogenization of design as well. I mean, the AI has, for the moment, has been trained on a lot of material, but at some point this material is starting to fade away, and what we see emerging from it starts getting very homogenized. And will at that point will we then need, human creativity to step in very strongly again, of course. And the generation is very much dependent as well on the accuracy of the data that you input into it. And that is a big topic as well to be aware of, and that it will become more and more important as the regulations around AI evolve. And finally, can you still see my presentation? Sorry, I just have a message of, sorry. Sorry, and of course, the last question is the one, job displacement, and what will it mean for our profession? I will quickly finish about what I mentioned previously, and what we think will change the way we question and use these tools in the near future is the AI acts that are coming out in general. The European Union Act is AI Act is one that has been published late December, and which we're observing carefully. It has identified 4 classes into which AI tools will fall and what their risk that they're posing, and how and the proposed rules that will go alongside this. And this starts really questioning and interesting points for us as creatives in terms of what source materials do we use, what how much do we have to acknowledge where the input is coming from to be able to present what part of a designer has been developed through artificial intelligence tools, etc. And if we take this question at large to a more general question, and especially in the context of the Franco-British Society, is how will these global regulations on AI influence the future of our relationship with AI, and for the creative industries in general, what that will mean, because we're seeing these regulations take on different conceptual approaches, which have very much to do with the culture in which they're being developed. So if I have to simplify this, the European Union Act very much tries to protect human rights, and that's its main driver, protecting the user of these, the end user of these tools, whereas the US Act is trying to keep in a very open and unregulated market to enhance creativity and not block potential economic development around these tools. With the UK now in the situation of maybe asking themselves what direction between these two extremes it might be taking. So I think the future of all these discussion and approaches will also be quite influenced by the way these regulations will be set up, and what that will mean on how and what tools we are able to use. And I will end
56,
up with
Nathalie.
Yeah, I'll end up with a few moments on our podcast. As Pierre has introduced it, you can look it up in all podcast platforms, Designing Futures. And we've had a series of interesting guests with whom we've covered a lot of the topics that I mentioned in this in my presentation. So if you want to learn more about these and upcoming ones, please join our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathalie. Can we share the slide as well afterwards with the audience?
Yes, certainly. I will share this so that everyone can have a look at these.
Thanks, great. Maybe we have time for a couple of questions before the end of the half an hour of short webinar. Do we have any questions on the discussion? So,
so maybe no. while people prepare their question, I'll jump in. Oh, we have a question already. So Christophe, I'll let you take over then.
Yes, a question from Severin as well already. Yes, do you think as well students as well are already trained in these new tools and understand as well all these new tools on these applications?
So I think that's a very important and interesting question. I think it very much depends for the moment on the school they go to, and very much on their studio, their tutors, and their personal investigation. It's very early days now in terms of how this is being regulated, taught. What we're seeing very much as well is obviously as was the advent when 3D modeling came about, or CAD drawing. Some schools trying to avoid it, or to not allow these tools to be used, but others actually embrace them. I think that it's not something that we can get away from, and that it should really be embraced to learn how to use these tools in the creative process rather than shying off.
Yes, I'm sure they will have to adjust during their career in the next 50, 20 years. Okay, do you have another questions? Maybe Pierre, do you have a questions or final questions?
Yes, maybe just to conclude, because it's true that AI and the impact of AI is a hot topic in the last months, but you started to think about it and conceptualize it like a few years ago. So it would be very interesting to know if your way of thinking about AI changed over these past 2 years dramatically, and if you think it will keep changing and we'll have to adapt.
I think so. It changed. I mean, it went from, as I said at the beginning, being scared or feeling it as maybe something that would take over our job, to being very enthusiastic about all the tools and the systems and how it actually enhances our creativity, to a moment now where it's actually become part of our workflow. It's not a big deal anymore. In parallel to that, we're constantly searching and looking out for these new tools that are being developed. I think one of the concerns or the questions we have now is that there's a few. I'd say, first of all, it's not that easy to put in place and to develop these across organizations. So that's something that, beyond the enthusiasm of these tools existing, how do you put this, systemize this, and then use this as part of a workflow in an organization is a big question. And I think the other question is, how do we ensure that we don't create differences between big design structures that can afford a lot of in-house research and developing tools in-house, and smaller structures that don't have this capability? What tools will they be available or have available as you? So I see those as kind of the two big topics that are questioned now.
Okay, great, thanks. I think we are already over the 30 minutes deadline as well. Trying to do this very short webinar. We'll be happy as well to know your feedback as well on this, keeping them short and on time, so they can be maybe during happening during a quick lunch break. Thanks a lot, Nathalie. And
you're welcome. Thank
looking
you.
forward as well to our next webinar. So our next webinar, still on AI and the built environment, will be on the 15th of May. I think you get the invitation as well on the chat. And we are going to discuss AI and OpenBeam. So I'm looking forward to it, and thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
and if
Nathalie.
you obviously have any questions, feel free to pass them on, and we'll be very happy to pass them on to Nathalie. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Nathalie.
And thanks, everyone. Thanks for the invitation.